Okay, so this is part two of looking at doing some work with the unit circle. And this was what we were going to go into. How do we actually solve some of these problems? What are some examples that we can give you? And we had asked you to write this down before in the last video. Now let's talk about this. So this is just an important idea here. All right, that what we have here across, and this is just going to be really helpful. This is probably something you're going to want to write down. That the side across from a 30-degree angle, and this I should have put here at the top, in a unit circle. All right, so when you're working in a unit circle, these are some just general guidelines. In a unit circle, the side across from the 30-degree angles is always 1/2. Now it might be negative, positive, depending on which quadrant you're in, but you need to know that 30 goes with 1/2. Across from a 60-degree angle is square root of 3 over 2. 60 goes with square root of 3 over 2. Across from a 45-degree angle, square root of 2 over 2. 45 is matched with square root of 2 over 2. Matching these things up is really going to help. Matching up 30 degrees to 1/2, 60 degrees, matching it up to square root of 3 over 2, and matching 45 degrees to square root of 2 over 2 is really going to help for this entire unit. Okay, so let's look at now some examples. So here, when it says sine of 45 degrees, what I want you to do is I first want you to get a visual. So I want you to draw that 45-degree angle and think about what is my reference angle. If you remember, your reference angle has to be between 0 and 90. Well, 45 degrees is already between 0 and 90. It's its own reference angle. So we have 45 degrees. Now I just said I want you to attach 45 degrees across from 45 degrees to square root of 2 over 2. Well, if this angle is 45 degrees, this is my right angle, this angle is also 45 degrees, so this is also square root of 2 over 2. Now, this problem is asking us for the sine of this. Now, hypotenuse is always 1 because we have a radius of 1 in this imaginary unit circle. So it's like this unit circle is here. Here we have our unit circle that kind of goes all around. That's a radius of 1. Okay, so our hypotenuse is always 1. So the sine of this 45 degrees is opposite over hypotenuse. So in this case, opposite over hypotenuse is just opposite. Remember how I was saying it's also just the same if we were looking at this point here as the sine is the same as our y? Notice that it's just the same as this, that distance here, same thing that we're talking about. So we're kind of hopefully seeing and we'll make some connections. Tangent of 135. Let's look at that. Again, I want you to sketch it. So I want you to start by drawing it. Tangent of 135 would look about there. And our reference angle would be a 45-degree reference angle. Across from a 45-degree reference angle is square root of 2 over 2. This one also would be 45 degrees, so this would be square root of 2 over 2. Now, because we're in the second quadrant, we have to say to ourselves, in which direction did we go negative? So when we have our quadrant, okay, as you're going up, you're going positive. If you're going down, you're going negative. As you're going to the right, you're going positive. As you're going to the left, you're going negative. So we're going to keep that in mind. Well, here we are going up in this, so it's a positive 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. This is a negative because we are going left in that direction. So we have a negative there, but this here was going up, so it was a positive. Now we are asked for tan. Tangent of that angle, I'm just going to call it theta at this point, this angle that we're talking about, is opposite over adjacent. So I needed to take square root of 2 over 2 divided by a negative square root of 2 over 2. Well, any number divided by itself is 1. So technically I have a 1 here, and it's going to be a negative 1 because it's like a positive divided by a negative is a negative. So really the tangent of that 135 turned out to be a negative 1. All right, we're going to keep at this. I know it's not always easy the first time you see these. All right, let's get another example here. Excuse me. All right, so let's look at secant. Secant of 210. Now, mind bubble, what I want you to think when you see secant, I want you to think, oh, It's 1 over cosine. That's what I want you to be thinking in your head, okay? Oh, we have 1 over cosine. So your first step is just, where is 210 degrees? 210 degrees would be right here. All right, so the 210 degrees kind of comes like this. My reference angle would be 30 degrees. So this angle right here is 30 degrees. Across from 30 degrees, this is my right angle, is 1/2. If that's 30, this has to be 60. Across from 60 is square root of 3 over 2. Okay, now let's decide positive or negative. This side is going in the negative direction here. It's going negative, so that's a negative 3 over 2. This leg right here is going in the negative direction. That's a negative 1/2. Okay, and this is always 1 here. All right, so now we are trying to find, oh, that's right, not really secant, but cosine. So first I'm going to figure out what is the cosine of that angle. So the cosine of my angle, if you remember, was adjacent over hypotenuse. Adjacent would be square root of 3 over 2, and it was negative. So then the secant of that same angle, that 210-degree angle, is just the reciprocal of that, the flip. I just have to flip my fraction, and that's my answer. Okay, so it looks a little bit more difficult than it is. Let's keep going. All right, so now we're going to be looking at cotangent of 60 degrees. All right, cotangent, excuse me, of a negative 60 degrees. So first I need to draw that negative 60 degrees. So here's my negative 60 degrees. Here's 60 in the negative direction. Remember, negative it's going to put you in the 4th quadrant there. You're going clockwise if it's negative. If that's 60, this is 30. This is always my right angle. Across from the 60, square root of 3 over 2. Across from the 30 is 1/2. Okay, now we always have a hypotenuse there of 1. Cotangent, thought bubble, should be in your head. 1 over tangent. So first I need to decide what's the tangent of this. Tangent of this angle that I'm talking about is opposite over adjacent. So I need to take square root of 3 over 2 over divided by 1/2. How do I divide by a fraction? Well, you multiply by the reciprocal. I'm going to multiply by 2 over 1. This way this reduces to a 1, and my answer is just square root of 3 over 1. Now, we're not dealing with tangent, which is what this is. This is tangent. We're dealing with cotangent. So the cotangent of my negative 60 degrees is going to be 1 over square root of 3. I forgot something really important, and I apologize. I'm just realizing that I forgot my negative here. I need to think that that's negative. This is going in my negative direction here. This one's going in the positive direction, so I'm okay here. But this was negative, which meant this was negative, which meant this was negative, which means the answer in the end is negative 2. So I apologize that I missed that when I first looked at it. Okay, so our answer there, the cotangent of negative 60, is negative 1 over 3. All right, let's look. Tangent of 300. All right, so again, our first step is graph it. Okay, we can graph this. 300 would be about, oh, it's a lot like what we just did. It's a lot of the same angles that we just did. There's 300. It would come around that way to get our 300 degrees. What's left would be a 60-degree angle there. This one would be a 30 degree, and here's our 90 degree. Across from 60, square root of 3 over 2. Across from 30 is 1/2. Now, you know what? I'm not going to do it to myself twice. I remember this is negative and this is positive. All right. Now I'm looking for just tangent. Okay, just tangent is opposite, negative square root of 3 over 2 divided by adjacent. I'm going to right away flip it and multiply. And then the answer is going to be negative square root of 3. That's the answer to the tangent of 300. All right, so I'm going to have you pause the video here for a minute, and I want the worksheets handed out to the classroom if you're in the classroom. If you're watching this just at home, just you might want to print out the 5-3 worksheet so you can follow along to a few examples. All right, so we have the worksheet in front of us. So if you don't have everybody have the worksheet, make sure you just push pause, and then as soon as everybody gets the worksheet, we can go on this. But I wanted to show you a few examples here from the worksheet. So let's start with problem number 1. The sine of 210 degrees. So we already have the axes there, and I just need to first start by putting where is that sine of 210. So 210 is going to be right here. Here's my right angle. I'll make my right angle here. All right, and the reference angle for 210 degrees is 30 degrees, okay? And then the other one's going to be 60. A lot of times I don't even write that 60 anymore. This is my 1/2. This is square root of 3 over 2. And this is 1. Now let's decide what's positive, what's negative. This is in the negative direction, and this is in the negative direction. In fact, in the third quadrant there, both of them are going to be negative. And we're going to be talking and kind of getting some clues about where is things negative. The sine of 210, which is really the sine of that 30-degree reference angle in the third quadrant. Sine is opposite, so it's really just this sine over hypotenuse, which is 1. So the sine of that 210, the answer is just negative 1/2. All right, so it was just that y value there. Let's go on to the next one. The cosine of a negative 150. So here I'm going to draw the line. So this way is the 150 right here. It's 150 degrees. But to draw my triangle, I have to come back. So the right angle is made with the x-axis. This reference angle is going to be a 30-degree reference angle. Now, hopefully you're catching on. It's either going to be a 30 degree, a 60 degree, or 45 degrees. All right, so our reference angle here is 30 degrees. Across from the 30, a lot like what the one we just did, is negative 1/2. Across from the 60 is square root of 3 over 2. Here we're looking for the cosine. The cosine, if you remember, is adjacent over hypotenuse. Here's my adjacent. My hypotenuse is 1. Cosine is also known as the x value. In this case, sorry, that's negative. It's negative 3 over 2. That is our answer there for number 2. Okay? Let's look at number 3. We're looking at the tangent of 30. So I'm going to draw my 30-degree angle. Here's my right angle. This is 30 degrees. Across from the 30 is 1/2. Across from the other one is square root of 3 over 2. It's a 60. No negatives because I'm in the first quadrant. Tangent. Well, the tangent of any angle is opposite 1/2 divided by adjacent, square root of 3 over 2. What I need to do here is I need to take that 1/2 and I need to multiply it by the flip of my denominator, 2 over square root of 3, after I flip it or take the reciprocal. My answer is 1 over square root of 3. And that's where I'm going to just circle and move on. That's going to be my answer. All right, let's look at number 4 now. I like number 4 because now we're finally dealing with a quadrangle. A lot of you are going to be like, wait a minute, how do I draw a 90-degree triangle? Well, you really don't. Or a 90-degree angle. You just look if it's a 90 degree or 180 degrees or 270 or 0 or 360. It's a quadrangle. We don't draw the degree, we just draw the point. So this is the point 0, 1. That's where 90 degrees would be. Okay? Now, cotangent, if you remember when we wrote this down, cotangent of any value was x over y. We need to take the x value over the y value, and that's something you just kind of have to remember. I actually kind of think of it as cosine over sine, and I know cosine is my x and sine is my y. But cosine, you have to just kind of memorize that it's going to be x over y. So in this case, at 90 degrees, the cotangent of 90 degrees is my x value divided by my y value. All right, 0 divided into one part is still going to be 0. So my answer here is simply a 0. Okay? I'm going to take that and move it over here. Oops, sorry. That's the wrong one. I moved over. Let's see if I can do it better here. There we go. I'm going to move all that work over for me. Okay. So let's look at the next problem. Cotangent of a negative 300. So negative 300 is going to look about like this. So when I'm thinking of myself negative 300, I'm coming all around. Not quite to 360. I'd have to go 60 more to get to 360. So my reference angle is 60. So this is square root of 3 over 2. This is 1/2. This is 1. And they're all in the first quadrant, so they're all positive. So cosecant, in my head, my little thought bubble that's going on in my head is thinking 1 over sine. So first let's figure out what the sine is.